Chapter 6 Invasion by the Man-Eater. O Lord, if Ruplu was your special child, why did you choose him to suffer? O Lord, I recount the life of adversity faced by Ruplu as he fought against daunting odds. O Lord, if the happiness you gave was temporary, why is the sorrow permanent? The sad story began way back in 2011 at his tender age of 10 when he was in class 5. Till then Ruplu was an athlete, a sports lad full of vigor and activity. However, even after recovering from the disease, he continued being a cyclist, learnt driving and played cricket and badminton but could not join in athletics. 6/2/2011 We had been to Guwahati from Hojai to attend Ronku and Gita's marriage reception. Poo was a little feverish, but his zeal made him very ardent about the marriage party. Well dressed and handsome as always, he was ready for the reception. I noticed he did not enjoy the meal, although he was a foodie. I was very upset and thought that viral fever had reduced his appetite. Back home at night I gave him tablet paracetamol, and next morning on awakening he had mild pain on his right leg. Again we, Bhaskar and me, thought it was myalgia, muscle pain, due to viral infection. Another dose of paracetamol was given to reduce the pain and we returned to Hojai. For a week he had on and off mild fever, but it did not stop him from playing. In school, preparations were going on for the upcoming sports week. Ruplu submitted his name for slow cycle race, athletics, skipping, badminton and cricket. 15/2/2011 Ruplu came back from school and said, "Ma, আজি মোৰ right ভৰিটো আকৌ বিষাইছে। মই স্কুলত একো খেলা নাই।" Ma, today again I had pain in my right leg. I did not play anything in school. I forbade him from playing any further while we ladies enjoyed the badminton. When we were done with our matches, Ruplu could not resist himself from playing and had the pain again. I examined his right thigh. There was no redness, no swelling, no tenderness, meaning there was no sign of inflammation or injury. We were worried and made him sleep early after taking a painkiller. Pooh slept for some time, but the severity of pain woke him up at midnight. He needed immediate pain relief. Another dose of the painkiller was given and an analgesic spray, Volini, was sprayed, but the pain was not relieved. It was deep inside. I massaged his leg with an analgesic cream, but in vain. I caressed his hair, closed his eyes and tried to put him off to sleep, but he would not. But at around 5 in the morning the pain subsided and he slept for a while. 16/2/2011 It was my birthday. Ruplu was sleeping, but I was very tensed and my mind was fogged with negative thoughts. Being a doctor, I was trying to find out the cause of his pain. It was not muscle pain, nor was it a joint pain, but I concluded it to be some kind of a bone pain. I talked to Bhaskar and planned to get an X-ray done and waited for Pooh to get up. Ma from Guwahati was the first to wish me a happy birthday. I replied to her with negativity and sadness that I received the worst birthday gift from God. She became worried and asked me why I was talking like that. I told her about Ruplu's bone pain and compared it to Ruby, Ma's cousin. Ruby Mahi's daughter, she had a disease that is osteosarcoma of the leg bone. Very unfortunate that the little girl of 11 to 12 years had to undergo an above-knee amputation and was on crutches for a few days. It was such a pitiable sight. Half her leg was cut off and she hopped around on crutches as her parents and family watches over her. Soon she passed away. If God had planned to take her away, why did He give her the pain and trauma? Medical knowledge and sixth sense struck my mind with the possibility of the killer disease. My countdown for being brave and to prepare myself for the worst began. I had to be strong and manage on all sides. X-ray of the right leg was done. There was a medullary sclerosis and mild periosteal elevation. I consulted senior radiologist Dr. Jatin Sorgari, and for confirmation he advised a CT scan and a series of investigations began. Dr. Sorgari doubted it to be the ill-fated disease but reported it as osteomyelitis or bone infection or trauma. He did not wish on revealing but advised an MRI and an orthopedic consultation. My mind was imprinted with the thought of the sinful disease, but Bhaskar was not strong enough to accept facts. He denied to think negative and said Ruplu used to fall quite often off his cycle, so it should be a bone injury followed by an infection. 18 to 2011. Dr. Diganta Fukon, orthopedic surgeon, examined Ruplu, saw the CT scan and advised an immediate MRI. Very hastily I got our bags packed, quivered with nervousness as I did so. We were so saddened and shattered that we had no words to express our grief but only to follow as advised. 19 to 2011. We were in Guwahati. Dr. Pranjal Goswami, radiologist, was known to us, and with a phone call we fixed our time and got the MRI done at Insight. Ruplu's first experience of the MRI, and he greatly disliked it because the procedure was very noisy and time consuming. Dr. Goswami doubted the same and hinted for immediate management. Dr. Diganta Fukon was informed and he advised consultation with Dr. Tulsi Bhattacharya, Bhattasar, a well-known orthopedic surgeon and our teacher at Guwahati Medical College when we were students back then. We took the investigation reports and met Dr. Bhattacharya in his chamber, but Ruplu stayed back in our Rihabari residence. We did not wish on discussing the diagnosis in front of him. The final diagnosis of the man-eating disease, the invasion by the man-eater, was ultimately disclosed by Dr. Bhattacharya. He said it is an early stage Ewing sarcoma. The word we heard of and read about during our MBBS and postgraduate course, but we had to live with it. We had to get acquainted with it. It was like a work of fiction that has come out into reality. I listened to Bhatta sir very quietly and patiently with a brave heart, but for Bhaskar it was an utter denial. He said no. He insisted it to be osteomyelitis and nearly went into an argument with Sir. The decision was taken to open and see right into the affected region and lay our doubts to rest. But it was a wrong decision. It should have been a fine needle aspiration biopsy and not an open biopsy. We were all panic-stricken and the decision was a hasty one. That very evening Ruplu was admitted to Pratiksha Hospital. He was told that a very minor procedure of incision and drainage of pus would be done. Without a word he accepted what was being told, no fear, no tension, no curiosity. Ruplu knew his doctor parents and all the trusted doctors would do their best for him. Fortunately, at that time, Dr. Jagadish Bosumatari, Jagadish Da, was in Guwahati and he was informed. Bhatta sir and Diganta Da were ready in the OT. Flora, who always remembered Ruplu in her evening prayers, prayed to the Almighty to give him the strength and fortitude to face that difficult moment. Jagadish Da took Ruplu inside the OT, adorably holding him by his shoulder. He said, "Ruplu, bola. Ruplu, let's go." And both went in with a smile on their faces. We, Bhaskar and I, along with our relatives Dada, Bo, Rintu, Babi, waited outside the OT praying. Even Paplu had come from the hostel to be with Ruplu. He was in class 11 science stream in NPS International School, Guwahati. We all hoped it to be a bone infection and that pus would drain out of it. Within a few minutes our prayers turned to shedding of tears when the heartbreaking news from the OT arrived. It is not pus but blood. It became obvious that there was no infection, rather the dreaded man-eater had invaded Ruplu's healthy bone and made it bleed. We were shattered like broken pieces of glass. Our hearts bled as Ruplu was bleeding inside the OT. I remember how I hugged Paplu to console him. He was crying incoherently. I hated the whole circumstance. I felt it was a great blunder, a big mistake, to make a nick to drain out pus, cause there might be some sort of spillage around the area for the deadly disease to spread to the adjacent areas and afar. But on the bright side, this procedure gives sufficient tissue for biopsy. Ruplu was out with a couple of stitches on the side of his right thigh. The man-eater has tasted his flesh and blood. This is not fair, dear Lord. Why did you choose my little Ruplu to suffer? Were we cursed? Was it a punishment for some past deed? Multiple questions struck my mind, but without any answer. He was back to the cabin, surrounded by all of us, but we wore a masked face and hid our sorrows and tension. We pampered him and made him pain-free and comfortable. We wanted him to be happy and smiling. From day one, I became Ruplu's permanent nurse and attendant, attending to all his needs. Following morning, Pompey arrived from Diffu. Pooh switched to his normal diet, and Pompey, Babi, and I treated him with his favorite dishes, and he felt himself busy with the games on his Samsung tablet and with his all-time favorite Tarak Mehta Ka Ulta Chashma and cricket matches on TV. The surgeon suggested that the specimen be biopsied at 3 different laboratories. The specimen is the diseased tissue that is put in a fixative, formalin, for several hours and is embedded in large blocks of paraffin wax, which makes it durable and storable for an indefinite period without any change in the cells. Bhaskar's never-ending, difficult and bone-breaking journey began. 3 blocks of the specimen were made and Bhaskar set out with them hopelessly. One was taken to Sohoria's path lab at Bhangagar, Guwahati. Dr. Dhiren Sohoria was the best pathologist then and his lab the most reliable. The other was sent to Ranbaxy Laboratories Limited, Guwahati. It is a research-based international company. I feel so heartbroken as I recall the bitter memories. The word biopsy brought fear to our minds, the fear of the attack by the silent killer. With prayers and hopes, we waited patiently for 3 more days, giving priority to Ruplu's comfort. He should be at his best, both physically and psychologically. The tension within us increased, but we kept Ruplu unaware of it. 22/2/2011. Breaking the bad news. Dr. Abhishek Singh was doing his post-graduation in anesthesia at Nellore after completion of residentship at Hum Hospital. He broke the very bad news to Rintu when I was enjoying a veg cutlet from the canteen at Pratiksha. The news from Sohoria lab must have reached Dr. Fukon, Dr. Saidul Islam, Noor, Abhishek, and then to Rintu and Pompey. With a lot of courage, Pompey passed the news to me, the worst confirmation report. Breaking the bad news, as I have learnt in palliative medicine, requires great communication skill and even more courage, but Pompey knew I was, in a way, tuned for the worst. She was constantly by my side as I tried hard to not just accept the unacceptable, but also that the mask of normalcy does not slip off my face when Ruplu was around. I did everything for him with a smile, but would wipe the tears off my face behind the screen. I nursed him with patience without a frown, as he was a very good patient with innocence and cooperation. Pooh never questioned, nor did he show his curiosity to know what was going on. Either he was too innocent to know the biopsy report, or he was too smart not to show his curiosity, or he was convinced his doctor parents and doctor uncles would do their best for him. But what about Bhaskar? The denial he had with the MRI report, his reaction on open biopsy, and his faint-hearted nature made it even more difficult for us to convey the message. In the evening, 13 doctors from Hum and RC Hojai came to see Ruplu. All of them had a warm space in their hearts for dear Ruplu. They blessed him and wished him a speedy recovery. We hinted the doctors that Bhaskar was still unaware of the report, as it was only a telephonic message to the doctors of Hum. The report was yet to be collected. They called Bhaskar aside to the lobby outside the cabin to disclose the bitter truth. He could not face the reality and stooped down. His cardiovascular and central nervous system lost control and could not keep him standing. He had a vasovagal attack. It is a faint, often occurring as a reaction to a stressful trigger when there is a sudden drop in heart rate and blood pressure. This leads to reduced blood flow to the brain, causing a brief loss of consciousness. It is also called as neurocardiogenic syndrome, which is self-treatable, and the person needs to lie down to revive the blood circulation. The doctors immediately made Bhaskar lie on the couch in the cabin lounge, and he quickly regained consciousness and molded to the circumstance. Hum team of doctors advised us to immediately shift Ruplu to Mumbai. So did our close ones. Everyone was so much concerned and affected that they all tried to help us.